All right, hello. Hopefully everything works correctly. Haven't done a live stream in a little while. So, yeah, just want to touch on a few things just before we start going through GitHub and issues and look at some stuff to fix. The first thing is the channel crossed 1,000 subscriber, so that's really nice. Took I think just slightly over a year for that to happen. So very, very good to see. Very happy about that. And we'll see how much further this can grow. Um, Other than that, yeah, I was kind of gone for the past little while, so that's why it's been a bit since a live stream. I effectively was traveling for 2 weeks in Europe uh, to well, like one of the week was effectively an in-course training for a customer over there, and then I went to the yearly Linux Plumbers Conference, Linux Kernel Summit, and some other events there that were in Vienna. So yeah, that was pretty good. Got to catch up with everyone, but that was kind of 2 weeks back to back of not being able to really keep track of too much of what was going on in the in-course community. Then I got back home and had a mostly normal week just following that. Um, but then the weekend that weekend I was getting married, so that happened, which then meant the week after the wedding I had family coming over, and then we did a wedding reception that following weekend, and then last week I was mostly off after all of those events. So now I'm finally back and catching up. So if you've seen things being maybe slightly broken here and there, or things taking longer than usual to get responses, that's normal. That's what was going on. Now I should be back to normal, and I'm just mostly catching up. So a few things I've been doing. I mean, the first thing was the forum. Had quite. I think I opened the forum last when I got back this week. Also, this week actually was shortened because Monday is a public holiday in the US and in Canada, so I was off. And then Tuesday, I was moving all of the data center infrastructure, and I can actually touch on that in a tiny bit, to a different room in the same building. So yeah, that was pretty busy. So when I opened the forum, I think on Wednesday I had something like 80 different topics in there. So I went through everything. I responded to a few. A bunch of others were thankfully already had good responses, thanks to community members. So it was great to see. And I caught up on emails, and yesterday I mostly focused on CI because we had a bunch of failures going on. So I've cleaned that up now. The images, there were a bunch of issues because of a new version of Cloud Init that's all kind of broken, basically. So I had to work around it in Arch Linux and in Kali. Fun2 broke ARM64 support some months ago, apparently. So I had to remove that image to unblock things. And other than that, yeah, the rest of the images are mostly behaving. OpenOILA always have some kind of network issues. It will retry a few times, it will go green again, so that's good. And then I've been also fixing some other, so we've got daily tests that we run on Incus, and a bunch of those were also failing for different reasons. Some were broken tests, and a couple were actually small regressions and issues in Incus proper. So I got that taken care of. As you can see, there's just one left here in test storage VM, which was completely failing, and now it seems to be only partially failing. So the last green on that one was a long time ago. It was on August 28th, and I found a regression we caused recently, so I fixed that one, which is probably why we're seeing it. If we go actually on the previous run, I guess that's a rerun. Yeah, previous run. Can see that instead of it failing across the board, now it only fails mostly across the board. So there's still some issues I need to look at there, but this is improving. Let me actually just check what's going on with that ZFS failure. And okay, increasing VM root disk size for next boot. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I need to, that's an easy fix I can do. But basically what happened is we've got logic here that tries to grow the VM, and it expects that we just mark the VM as needing growth on next boot. But we don't, because Incus supports live resize now and has done that for a little while. It doesn't do it across the board, so that's why it's only needed on some backends. But yeah, it does it on LVM and it does it on ZFS. And this is ZFS that failed, so that makes sense. What else failed? BurFS failed too. Let me check. Did it fail for the same reason? It's possible that BurFS also does the live resize. I don't remember. No, BurFS failed for a different reason. Okay, so we need to at least put an exception in the test to skip that particular logic if it's on LVM, LVM thin, or on ZFS. So let's just go ahead and quickly do that. That's not a part of the code I've already shown before. There's another problem here. Okay, I'll deal with that one later. But that's in our CI code rather than in Incus itself. So let's go look at that. LXC CI, and the test here is Incus test storage VM. So it's in bin test Incus storage VM. This guy. Okay, and we're looking for apply quota in here. Here we go. And so effectively this check just needs to go away. So the set needs to happen, but this part here does not need to happen if we are on ZFS or LVM. Let me just check what we do for the drivers. Okay, so we've got ZFS, LVM, LVM fin. Okay, so we'll just hardcode that. Okay, so if, oh, and what's the variable name? Pull driver list. Okay, but okay, so it runs the full test. It's named pull driver then, I guess. Yeah, it's named pull driver. Okay, cool. So we'll just do if pull driver is. I mean, currently this is needed for, I believe, both directory and BurFS currently needed because they're using a loop file effectively. I think everything else is fine. So if it's on those, then we need to do stop, start, wait agent. Okay. Otherwise, the change happens live, so it should be okay. So we should just put that here, and then if increasing VM disk size, and we don't do for next boot, we just do it live. Okay, so if the storage driver is directory or BurFS, that logic is wrong, let's go fix it, or BurFS, then we need to do the reboot dance. If not, then we just increase it, we're good. Okay. So let's just commit that, and it's Incus storage VM, and handle live root disk resize. Let's do something here. Okay. And I just need to go and refresh the copy on the Jenkins server. So that should take care of that. It will still fail on the other one, like the BurFS thing. I'm not sure what's up with it, but at least we should clear the rest, and then BurFS I can figure out later. So just trying to make sure that our daily tests run, they're consistently green, and we can rely on them. And if one of them goes bad, then we immediately know that something actually needs to happen. So this is good. And kind of going back to things here. So yeah, I mentioned Tuesday I was moving data center infrastructure from one room to another. Basically, my colocation provider is moving room within the same facility. So I had to move all of my servers. That meant the production cluster that runs, amongst other things, all of our image server, the website, my website, a whole bunch of other things. Some customers are also hosted on there. There's a whole bunch of things going on. It's not a very large cluster, it's just 3 machines, but it's running a decent number of containers and VMs these days. Can actually go and look at that real quick. Obviously not listing, not going to show you the actual list because there are customers on there, but if I do this to just get the current count, what do we have? Okay, 99 instances currently running across 3 machines. So it's not super large, but it's reasonably large. One thing that I can show you, which was nice to see, and the first time I was really exercising it to that extent, is it's in WordPress 0.1. It's in a project called Future Fusion. There. Okay. So this is a VM running on that cluster, and you can notice the uptime at 56 days, despite having literally moved the entire rack from one room to another. And it even did that without any downtime. So if we go look at for the status page for my customer stuff, okay, it's loading, and we can see here. So there's some downtime because there was a power cut at home. So my home cluster SHF, which is here, did get blasted reasonably badly on the 15th and a bit on the 16th because of that power cut. But if we look at the rest, they're getting 99.75% uptime, despite, again, having moved the entire thing from one room to another. And the only reason why the uptime is that bad, to be fair, it's not really bad, but that bad, is because my hosting provider really did a very bad job at doing the wiring in the new room. Out of the 4 fiber uplinks I was supposed to be getting, only one of them was correctly functional. So when I started moving things, I had some amount of expectation that things would actually be connected and working, and they weren't. So some bumpiness here and there, effectively 3 power cuts, or 3 network disconnections of about 30 seconds each happened, and that effectively caused the monitoring to see that as 3 cuts of at least a minute, and that shows as that on the uptime. But anyway, the point was to show that it's perfectly possible to run an in-cast cluster in HA mode in a way that can be evacuated and moved around and stuff. And if your network is also redundant, in my case I use BGP for everything, I was actually able to move servers one by one from one room to another, move the instances and stuff from one server to another with live migration, so that the entire move did not impact the uptime of that VM and didn't really impact connectivity either. So that was really good to see, really nice to see everything working as expected. Like in general, for my own clusters, I do already use the approach of updating, applying all the package updates and everything, making sure that all of the system config and everything is correct once a week, and then doing a reboot. So the machines have at most a week of uptime always. And obviously that VM showing 50 plus days of uptime, that shows that it's gone through a number of those evacuations and live migrations and stuff during its lifespan. And yeah, in this case, even went through being physically moved to a different floor in the facility, still without getting any downtime. So anyway, the nice things you can do with a production in-cast cluster these days, it's really quite nice. Cool. So yeah, what I was saying, and the reason for this live stream is the thing I've not caught up on yet is GitHub. If we look at my notification folder, I've got a fair amount of them. I think actually I have multiple pages. Yeah, I do. So the idea was to focus on the in-cast side and try and clean things up. Before I left for Europe, the issue count was down to around 25. We're now up to around 40. I don't want that number to really ever hit 50 or so, because I like to be able to kind of mentally remember all of the GitHub issues we have open. And I just can't do that if we go above 50, basically. So I try to always really quite aggressively keep the issue counts down, fixing the easier things, closing anything that we know we're not likely to do. I always dislike when open source projects, or any project really, just opens an issue for anyone's feature request, even if they know there's no way in hell they're ever gonna do it. I think it's better to just tell people up front, like, look, this thing doesn't really make sense. We don't really want to do it, and just close it, instead of kind of giving false hope that maybe one day we'll do it. So anyways, issues. So normally what I do is that things are kind of sorted, tagged, labeled, and everything, and assigned to milestones. So if we look at 6.7, there's just a few things in there that need to be sorted out. This one got an update, but it's already triaged and everything. Okay, so it was closed and then reopened. So yeah, needs to actually look into this a bit more. It's not really clear what's going on here, but anyways, this one is already triaged, so it's not too much point in looking at it right now. The thing is all of the others. So if we do issue with no milestone, then we should see basically everything that appeared since I left. So we've got 12. So if all of those were to go away, we'd be down to 27, which is very close to what I had at the time I left. Actually did file a few issues myself as I was traveling, as I was noticing issues and stuff, so that explains it. All right. And there were actually 2 issues that are marked as incomplete. I think they were waiting for user feedback. What's going on in this one? An active issue. So like 4 issues that are missing details, I tend to ask questions, mark them incomplete, wait a bit, and then close them if nobody answers. So in this case, this issue, which was around some weird logic with like adding, removing NVIDIA GPUs, and eventually they would fail. It's got an update, so I'm just checking that one real quick. This shipped an arch a couple of days before I reported this. I might not reboot it on my house. I was changed one of the 2 things that was fixed. Okay, so it's linking to some packaging logic in Arch. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that's just a logic to run NVIDIA Mod Probe automatically when an NVIDIA device shows up. Okay, so that's something that the different Linux distros should be integrating. Doesn't make sense for us to do directly in Inca, so we won't be doing that. And seems like with this addition to the Arch Linux packaging, this got sorted out, so we can go and close this one. Yay, one less issue. Now, back to the list. And I'm pretty sure it's not always going to be that easy. But that's always good to get rid of one. Okay, this one was already kind of looked at. Let's go from... So this one I actually did talk to this guy yesterday. It kind of makes sense. So the idea is that this is a feature request, not a bug. So we're not going to fix it in this live stream. But if you've watched the release announcements and some of the recent live streams, I've been doing some work on load balancers with Oven. And one of the things that was added was the ability to monitor the backends. So have Oven itself do health checks by trying to connect to the backend services every few seconds. And then if that fails, then report it, like expose that in our API that this backend is dead. The request here is that, okay, now that's great, but they're using both Oven and our BGP support. And when you do that, then the Oven load balancer addresses are advertised over BGP. And what they would like to see is if all the backends are down, so if you're using a load balancers with health check enabled and all the backends are offline, which is probably what we're seeing here. So they're actually showing some examples. Okay, cross DC stuff. Okay, fine. There we go. Okay, so in this case, all 4 backends are offline. They would like the BGP announcement to go away. It's a reasonable request. It's not an easy one to handle on our side because we send BGP advertisements for Oven resources from every single server. Because Oven is distributed, it's not tied to any one machine, so every single server in the cluster will advertise the exact same IP address with the exact same next hop entry point. It's actually what we can see. No, he didn't show the BGP stuff. Anyways, so that's fine, but the problem is that we now need every single server in the cluster to know that a service is fully offline. So that adds a bit more trickiness. There are ways to monitor the Oven database, which we would probably want to do here. So effectively, every time a service, like a backend, goes from online to offline or from offline to online, then we should reconsider whether that particular load balancer should be BGP advertised. So that's the idea. And we need every single server in the cluster to do it in a consistent way, so that when a backend goes down, after a few seconds, the advertisement is gone from the entirety of the cluster. That should be okay. We'll take some amount of time to do it right and making sure we don't have any race conditions or witness or anything in there, and that background logic properly begins when a load balancer is created with health checks and properly ends when load balancer no longer has, it's removed or it's got its health checks disabled. The other trickiness with the load balancers is that while the user only sees a single load balancer and they can play with the different protocols, so you can do TCP, you can do UDP, and you can mix them within one load balancer, the background implementation of the Oven load balancer is actually one load balancer per protocol. So you end up with a load balancer for UDP, load balancer for TCP. And that's fine. It's mostly transparent to the user. But as far as we're concerned, that now means that if Oven shows us that all the backends on a load balancer are dead, that doesn't mean that we need to pull the advertisement. We need to also go look if there's a second load balancer for the same IP address but on a different protocol. And if that one is also all offline, then okay, cool, we'll go and pull the advertisement. If that second load balancer doesn't have health checks for some reason or doesn't have any of that kind of stuff, then we'll need to keep the advertisement up. I think in general, I'm not sure actually what we do for the test, but the reality is that UDP being connectionless, I don't know how Oven even handles health checks on that. It might just not do it, in which case that means that if you have any UDP backends, then the advertisement will forever happen. Anyway, bit of logic to do. It's fine. It's not a trivial thing to do. It's a feature. It needs documentation to explain it in the BGP doc. There's no API change because there's no config key or anything for this. It's effectively just changing the logic. It's definitely not an easy one, so I'm not gonna mark it as easy. And hopefully we can work on this soon. So like milestone-wise, when I do triaging, we've got we usually have the next release, the one after that. So we've got Incus 6.7. I will probably create Incus 6.8 so that we can kind of dispatch things the way we want it there. And then we've got soon, which is to say it's not tied to a particular release yet, but hopefully within the next 2-3 months it will be done. And later, which is okay, we agree that this probably should happen, but there's really no rush around it yet. Okay, so that's that one triage, not gone, but just at least gone from the not milestone list. Then we've got one which is add the ability to print admin SQL query output in raw non-table format, and there's actually a patch attached to it. So that's this one. I'm gonna go through it with this an easy feature. Let's just attach it to 6.7, assign it to myself, and we'll actually keep it around because with a patch attached, assuming the patch is good, this should be a very trivial one to just add. And I don't necessarily think I agree with the CLI way of doing it. So there's going to be some amount of tweaking because by default, Incus admin SQL prints you a table. And since it prints you a table, it would actually make sense for us to support the normal format output and probably not with JSON and YAML and stuff. That doesn't make sense, but still supporting format with table being the default and raw being like a SQL statement effectively. So yeah, that's kind of the idea here, I think. But like, maybe this one will go and do it. It should be pretty easy. We'll also retitle this thing like support -- format on Incus admin SQL. There we go. and we should take it from there. Next, so this one is also gone now. Prevent instance migration. So what's that one? Instance placement scriptlet offer interesting ways to control how instances are placed on cluster nodes while creating relocation due to the node being down. While creation, relocation due to the node being down, and evacuation are handled. There is, to the best of my knowledge, no way to block a migration to an unwanted cluster node. So I have two questions. Actually, I think we can. How to log an instance to a specific cluster without creating a dedicated project attached to a dedicated group. What? How to lock an instance to a specific node in a cluster without creating a dedicated project attached to. I mean, the way you do that is by preventing its migration, I think. Okay, so I'm gonna answer that one. Way to do this would be use targets during creation, then set cluster.evacuate to stop so it never gets migrated away during evacuation or recovery. Okay, so that's that one. And then could the instance placement script be modified so that it includes an optional parameter request target containing the requested migration target on an optional parameter or request property target containing the requested migration target? I'm kind of confused. Optional parameter request. Huh. Okay. Oh, I see. So I think we actually call it always now. Pretty sure we do. And that I think that changed back with 6.6 actually. And failing is possible as far as I know. So let's just answer that. Because there was a question from what's his name? Don't remember. There was some other guy who was doing a bunch of scriptlet work with cluster evacuation, who ran into something similar where they still wanted, even for a simple dash target, to still run through the scriptlet. And I think we do that. I'm not 100% sure. And yeah, for failing, I'm pretty sure we can do return placement rejected or something like that. Okay. I'm gonna mark this one as incomplete because it's not clear that we actually need to do anything. Yeah, it's possible. Like, I mean, I don't think that we cover in documentation whether actually, yeah, I'm probably gonna send a pull request to just take care of this guy. I don't think we mention in our documentation that you can return a string from the scriptlet, and if you do, then it's treated as an error. It's something that I've used before, but I don't know if the documentation actually covers it. There's a question in the chat around whether the instance scriptlets can set global state. No, they can't. So the scriptlet is really designed to be standalone. It's quite limited on what it can do. It can't even do loops or any of that kind of stuff, really. It can query things, but the only thing it can decide to perform is setting a target. That's it. It can't mutate the instance definition. It can't set any kind of global state or anything, which is usually how we want it. It's not impossible that we will allow it at some point to set like a user config key or something or not, like a user dot thing on the instance. That might make sense. But currently, now the only thing you can do is set the location. All right. So that just makes me think that we might need to tweak the docs. Let's just go and do that real quick. Okay. It's that kind of tiny thing where if I don't do it now, I'm just gonna forget, basically. So if we pull the code, here we go, and I've got a branch I've used for the documentation fixes. There we go. And I don't remember where our scripted stuff is in the doc, so let's figure it out. I think it's in cluster or something. Doc explanation clustering here. Okay. Clustering. Okay. And the scriptlet stuff is here. Instance placement scriptlet. Suppose control. Okay. Instance written installer. That's fine. Must implement the instance placement function with following signature. That's fine. Request candidate. It's fine. There's an example here. Okay, so it does kind of hint at it. Oh, there's actually, yeah, the fail command is also exposed. Okay, cool. So we actually do have that. And I think if you do return, it does the same thing as fail. So that's fine. I don't remember fail being a command now for some reason. Is that the command we expose, or is it the command that comes from Starlark? Yeah, because I don't see that. What are the other commands we expose? We'll expose like log info. Okay. So if we look at log info, Starlark, load instance placement. Okay. Yeah, fail is not here. Okay, so it might be a generic Starlark. Starlark fail function. Is that the built-in thing? It is. Yeah, okay, causes execution to fail with error message that includes the string. Okay, cool. So that's built in. So I'm actually gonna just gonna edit that answers. Rather than confuse everyone by putting a follow-up comment, so let's just change that one. Okay, so I think that's fine. This one is effectively good to go. Hopefully it supports everything we need. If not, it's just adding an extra hook to get that working. All right, add security ID map size for non-isolated container. This is a feature request too, so let's just do it. It's feature and it's documentation. I don't think it's an API change, but you might probably will need some docs. So the idea there is that currently only isolated containers respect the security ID map size property. Non-isolated containers get access to the entirety of the UID JID map for the root user. This is not exactly ideal in some cases, because if you're mix and matching isolated and non-isolated containers, you don't want your unisolated containers to step over the ranges of the isolated ones. So for that, it would actually make sense for everyone to respect security ID map size, and in which case you would set it, and then even the unisolated containers would cap their allocation to that size, avoiding any kind of overlap. With the difference being that then isolated containers each get a different non-overlapping map, whereas unisolated would all use the first map effectively. So it's not particularly difficult, but and hopefully we can do it for 6.7, but it's a new feature. Let me actually mark it as easy, because I think it is easy. Like, it's easy once we figure out what bits of code to actually modify. But that shouldn't be too difficult. It's effectively the code that's used to allocate the map of the container when it's first created. And on startup, that needs to be tweaked so that if security ID map size is set, you always cap to that number of UIDs and GIDs regardless of the mode. So that's fine. That's triaged and marked as easy so someone can take it if I don't get around to doing it first. Also not a bug, so not a big rush to fix that one. Unable to locate matching firmware on Incus 6.6. I think that was a NixOS thing, wasn't it? Yeah, NixOS. What's the command? Since 6.6 isn't available in 24.05, you're mixing unstable. I can't guarantee support. You didn't provide enough information. Okay, that's what I thought. It looked a lot like a Nix issue. Someone already reported something similar, I think, on the forum. And in that case, Adam was saying like, yeah, just go and file that as a Nix issue on the Nix bug tracker instead of doing it on the Incus one. And he just repeated that same message here. So just gonna close that one and we're good. Oneness. Next. Incorrect arguments passed to instance placement scriptlet on instance move. Okay, so yeah, that's from Victor. So he's the one who's been doing a bunch of scripted things. And what do we have? When incus move is used to move an instance between projects in a cluster, the arguments used to call the placement scriptlet are incorrect. So 3 projects, each with a different group. Well, not 2 different groups. Following cluster groups, okay, that's fine. Have the scriptlet, okay, so create an instance on project auxiliary and use move to move it between all possible pairs of projects. Get the following sequence. Okay, so that's with debugging enabled on scriptlets, that's cool. Candidate, so the set of candidate members always include just one node instead of the full cluster group. There should be 2 calls, I think. Huh. Oh yeah, we see 2. We see. I think those are the 2 calls. No, just single call. That's weird. I thought the scriptlet was supposed to be invoked twice. Anyway, those kind of things are pretty much of a headache to debug. So I'm gonna go with actually not easy. Just mark it as a bug, put it on 6.7, and assign it to myself. And I'll sort that one out later. Like I've got a test cluster I can use for this kind of stuff with multiple cluster groups, multiple projects. So that's perfect to test this kind of thing and try and figure out what's going on here. Yeah, there was already something I didn't like too much. It was like it was actually calling the scriptlet twice when you're doing that kind of cross-project move. And there might be something weird there where like the first invocation passes the wrong set of candidates or something like that. This is what we see, like we is saying we only ever see a single candidate. It's a bit annoying to read with the whole thing. It would have been easier if it had just showed just the name, but yeah, Intel 101 in this case. What do we have here? AMD 5700G. Okay, and nothing else. Yeah, so every time, as I said, like you're only getting a single one being reported, which feels wrong. I thought in my test I was seeing 2 calls to the scriptlet. One that was actually doing it, it was actually passing the whole set, and then the other one effectively being the confirmation of where it landed. It's possible that it is skipping the scriptlet depending on the reason for placement, maybe. I don't know if that's the issue, but I'll need to replicate that with slightly different debugging here and see what's going on. All right. So keeping that one for later. Next, strange behavior of ID mapping for unprivileged isolated containers. Okay, another one of those. Let's see. Strange behavior on 601 or 602. Okay. Self-compiling. Okay, so it's fine. We'll create 2 isolated. It's minimum range needed. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, so I think that's one of the things I saw on the forum, and I requested that an issue would be filed. So that's gonna be a tricky one to debug. basically it's I think he's allocated a large enough range, yeah, for 3 containers, so 3 times 65 by 46. And then he's creating containers on that, and you would expect to be able to place um, as many unisolated as you want and 2 isolated. That's what you would expect to get, because the first 65 536 should be skipped for the unisolated ones, and then the following 2 ranges should be available to consume, and is running out of UIDs and GIDs much faster than that. Effectively, yeah, the first container creates fine, the second one does not. So there's something wrong there. It's probably just a bit of logic that's wrong on our side that we don't really see because we're so used to dealing with kind of our default allocation of like 10 or 100 million UIDs and GIDs that this never happens. But when you're testing it with just exactly the right number, then this kind of thing happens. So I'm gonna put it as a bug assigned to myself, dump it on the 6-7 milestone, and we'll move on because that's gonna be another bit of a headache one to debug. And also not very fun for anyone watching, to be honest, because it's a lot of going through 10 different ID map related packages and try to figure out where did we do like an off by one mistake in the math to calculate those ranges. It's also the kind of thing you want to do with like a lot of focus to make sure that you don't mess up, because if you do, then you have the opposite issue of now we're gonna have like a 1 UID overlap between each container. And that would be absolutely terrible because that would mean that the nobody no group user of one container would be root on the next one. Because you would have like 65, 534, 534, 535 on one container, would be effectively 0 on the next one. And that would be kind of the worst case scenario as far as those maps. So you really want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with that logic. And yeah, that's kind of, I mean, that's pretty easy math, you'd think, but apparently we've got it wrong somewhere. Anyway, it's one of those things where like you're gonna spend 2 or 3 hours to track things down and then fix 1 line of code and then spend another 2 hours to make sure it didn't break anything by doing that. Anyway, next up we've got a OCI / Docker documentation improvement. Definitely agree we need to do something about that because we don't really have much in the way of docs for OCI right now. So documentation, easy, milestones for 6.7, and that should be that. Basically, need to create, probably try to create a page within the instances doc. Either, like we already have a section on VMs, I'm considering maybe splitting that off so that we've got 1 page for system containers, 1 page for application containers, 1 page for VMs with a bit more background and those notes. So it might be a bit of a mix of writing some new docs and also kind of reshuffling things so that they make sense. And in the case of OCI, the main thing we need to explain is kind of how to access the different registries and how that stuff works, because that's the part that's not obvious. The actual running and operating one of those containers, very easy, was the same as everything else. It's great. But the how do you get the container in place and how do you handle persistent storage and how do you handle the environment variables and that kind of stuff, that should probably be covered because that's quite different from what one does with Docker or even with Kubernetes. All right. So yeah, that should definitely get fixed, and we'll have something for 6.7. That's fine. Okay, so this one's triaged. Next up, incus file push and sticky bit. Okay, what's going on there? Guess it's from Brian. Incus file push fails to overwrite a file in a directory with a sticky bit set, even if it previously created it itself. Okay. That's interesting. Also not sure why it would get forbidden. That's weird. Because we're accessing things through SFTP internally. I mean, so our own version of SFTP. But yeah, not too sure there. I think it's because it's sticky and the permission on the existing file is not root, and we're trying to perform a write as root, so we're getting an error for some reason. Yeah, bit bizarre. That should be an easy one to fix, you'd think. So yes, go bug easy. Like once you get a reproducer, it's kind of easy to figure that one out and shove it to 6.7. I was worried the issue was kind of the other way around, of like transferring a directory that has sticky bit set and expecting that to be set properly on the target, which you should be fine. But yeah, no, this actually what should be a simpler case, so it should be a pretty easy one to replicate and fix. So you can see, and you just need to push to /temp, which is usually sticky, so that's easy. All right, what else is left at that point? I think we're pretty much there, because this one is now incomplete. This one is no longer incomplete, so what's going... Oh, it was also new. Okay, what's going on with it? Incus in this build with the package test for runner builds recently decided to fail after that gets closed during the unit test. Okay, and there's a reproducer here which shows stopped right mirror, got bearer message, stopped right mirror. Okay, so this should do, okay, 1 sleep an hour, 2 3. Okay, just looking at the time on the okay, and that's interacting with the local incus. So what's going on? So it's true piping into a clean environment with incus exec debug, an instance spawn shell echo 1 into std, sleeping for an hour, echoing 2 into std, and then echoing 3 onto std. And we see std find std is closed, and not really clear why. Okay, that's an interesting one. There's an IO timeout. Huh. Okay, I'm gonna need to replicate this thing. In this case, we can see. Actually, we're missing the timestamp for the beginning, so it's kind of hard to tell. So we can kind of guess it, I guess, from the barrier and the end. So that finished at 14:13, so about 47 minutes in, I guess that means. Yeah, 47 minutes in is when it disconnected for some reason. Okay. I mean, that's... I'm not yet sure this is an actual bug on our side. It could be... If it's running against local, then I guess it would be a bug on our side. If it was running against something remote, I would say it could be a network timeout somewhere else, like a reverse proxy or something like that. But okay, I kind of want to run this locally now and see what happens. Obviously, it's gonna take a while to run, but let's just pick some random thing. I usually use my speed test container for testing for that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's do the same thing. True, and the instance is gonna be speed test. Okay. So with that, we should have seen something already. Just checking. It did echo 1 instead, so we should have seen a random 1 appear at some point. The problem is that in debug mode, it's kind of hard to see that because there's a lot going on usually. Oh, but we do have it. Never mind. Yeah, so it did 1. 1 is on std, it's fine, and now we're effectively waiting, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'll just keep that one around to look at. Okay. Oops, wrong one. I want to keep that one around. I wanted to keep this one around. Okay. Cool, so that's it for that backlog. Didn't get to get rid of too many of them, but still have 37. So they mostly got kind of reshuffled around, which is fine. But at least they've been triaged. And now I can go look probably at the SQL one if we got a few more minutes. See if we can get that one sorted. That stutter thing is interesting, but it's gonna take a little while. So it's just running in the background, and we'll see if the same issue happens here. If it doesn't, then I'm not too sure what to do. I can run that same command like maybe a dozen times in parallel with longer delays and see if something catches it. If not, then that might be an issue with the system this was running on somehow. I don't know. I think we do have a bunch of timeouts in a bunch of places for that code specifically, so we don't keep connections open too long. But we'll see. And it shouldn't really happen over the local Unix circuit so much. And yeah, Jared was pointing out for the OCI thing that we should probably explain, what it's meant for, because some people expect it to be a one-to-one match with Docker. And yeah, that's true. Like it's also kind of hard to explain. Like it does take care of probably, I don't know these days. Like, I mean, for my own use case, like 100% of what I use Docker for, but for some other people, it's going to be closer to like 70, 50%. It kind of depends. We don't do Docker Compose. There are tools that try to kind of do that, and we can do a pretty good job at doing that kind of thing with other tools. Like for Incus, you'd want to use Terraform and Ansible. You can use Terraform to create OCI instances on Incus. And so you could use Terraform to do what Docker Compose normally does, which is like creating a bunch of storage, creating networks, creating your instances, passing the right config and stuff. And Terraform does that really well for us. So that's kind of the good way to do it. There's a question around what's the state of volume mounts plus OCI. Well, that works fine. We just had actually an interesting issue that showed that Docker does some kind of auto magic where the OCI runtime definition tells us to mount some temp FSs on some of the persistent storage paths, and Docker effectively turns that into persistent storage automatically. Well, so we don't do that, and the way you need to then do it is add disk devices to those mounts to effectively pass in the volumes. And you can do that in two different ways. One way is you just pass a host path and map it to whatever the path is in the instance. That's pretty standard disk device. The other approach, and something Reddit support for in, I don't remember, 6.4 or 6.5, is you can create a custom storage volume. So use incus storage volume create, some name of the pool, some name of volume. And now you can use a subpath of that for those volumes. So I think I gave an example. There was an issue around Mattermost the other day. So if we go look at, I think it's closed now. So probably just is issue Mattermost. Should find it easily. There we go. So in the case of Mattermost, you can do something like this, where you can create a new volume called Mattermost data, and then add a bunch of disk devices for the different paths that you want. So in this case, like Mattermost plugins, Mattermost logs, Mattermost data, whatever, like all of those. And they all technically use that same volume as the source, but they use a subdirectory of it. So you do source, Mattermost data / log / plugins, etc. And it just passed that. So that way you've got one persistent custom storage volume that you can put a quota on, you can put on a different pool, you can do snapshots, you can do backups, you can do all of that kind of stuff on that storage. And then that gets mapped to the different volume attach points within the application container. So that's the kind of thing that needs to be mentioned in the documentation for OCI to kind of explain how that stuff works. And also explain like, yeah, how does that work if you want to just immediately see the console on startup. So not run in background, but run kind of interactively. So you need to pass / console for that. Explain that, yeah, if you want the same behavior as something like Docker around that, you want to also do it ephemeral. So there are a few tricks that kind of need to be covered, I think, for people to understand better what it's for, how it can be used, how to kind of tie things together. To have a one-shot incus stop or end times, yeah, the command line. Not sure what you mean. I mean, we do have incus stop. So we do have that. So I'm not sure if there's something missing in there or what you mean, but yeah, we do have in Github these days. All right, so I just wanted to look at that patch. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to deal with it. I'd like to keep the stream at around an hour, and we're pretty much right there. There was this request too. It's already assigned for later. Just checking. Okay, yeah. Cool. So it was in milestone 6.7. The one that's got the patch is this one. Okay, let's go look at that patch. I think it downloaded it, but didn't actually open it in anything useful here. Let's see, do I have it? My downloads folder. Yeah. Cool. Alright, so that adds. Yeah, I don't think we'll do it quite this way, but the general idea is kind of there. Where like instead of just calling the table writer, we'd want to add different ways of just printing the data. I mean, it's an issue if you've got multiple columns effectively. So that's what there's another here, like raw delimiter to decide how to show it. I think what we would normally do on our side is actually CSV. So we would do format and allow both table and CSV. And then if you do CSV and you've got a single column, then you're good. You don't see the comma separation, and so that is you just query a single value and you get what you want. So I think that would be my approach. I'm not sure how much of that patch I will actually use as opposed to just doing it slightly differently. But yeah, that would be my approach around that. So we go look at Incas here. I didn't end up changing anything in docs, so I just go on the main branch. Okay. And just make the code, making sure that this also still works. Font smaller than normal, yeah, quite possible. Zoom it a bit more now. Oh, I fixed it already, okay. I think just because I opened a different terminal and it was just smaller. All right, so in case admin SQL global, let's do, I don't know. Let's list a table that's not gonna have anything useful in it. Oops, I forgot from, there we go. Okay, so that just lists that. Now say we wanted to, get, I don't know, the address in there. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can just add some formatting to this stuff. So it's in the command, admin, SQL, and in here, I don't think there's any flags. There is not. So if we go and we do say list and we do flag format. So we want that to get carried over to here. And that's kind of the definition for that stuff. So let's do that. Okay. Default is stable. We're not gonna do JSON YAML, don't make sense. So we should just do all. I mean, compact might still make sense, but yeah, CSV table compact would probably be fine as far as what we want to support. And I think the table writing stuff actually supports that stuff directly normally, but the problem is that this function is not tied to the struct, so we need to go and fix that. So it has access to the struct data. Okay, yeah. So it seems like the questions having around Inca stop from earlier was to add support for like tweaking the delay and that kind of stuff. There's actually a issue open, I thought. If we look here real quick, I think there's an issue open around this kind of stuff. Make in-custop output configurable. So yeah, there's a thing here supporting the standard format, but also adding support for, whoops, apparently my text was all kind of messed up here. Let's see if I can fix that. Oh yeah, standard format and columns, but as well refresh. There you go. So yeah, the idea there was we can't just pass it as an argument because the in-custop command actually supports arguments to connect to remote clusters and that kind of stuff, but adding flags, so in this case the refresh flag would be the refresh delay, so that you can tweak that. So there's that issue already. If that doesn't really cover things, I might suggest going into that issue and adding more details on what might be missing. But yeah, that's the idea, is to effectively let you not like tweak the actual format so that you can use a different rendering, whether it's like a more compact table or something like that. You can choose what columns you want to see because currently that's fixed, and tweak the refresh delay and probably the sort order as well through the command line. Anyways, back to this thing now. SQL print. So this one becomes C dot. Okay. All right. And I believe we had some. Okay, so this does a straight up table writer. Whereas normally we go through a wrapper, I think, for our tables. Is that right? I need an easy one, not this guy. Flag format. How do we do that? Oh yeah, we've got CLI render table, and then that takes the format, header, data, and what's the last one? Because in this case, it passes the list of remotes. Oh, it passes the raw data. I think that's it. So data and then raw data. Okay. I don't know if we can switch to CLI render table. It would actually be kind of convenient if we could. So let's pretend we do. So if I do, just need that again. So yeah, format, header, data, raw data. So format, the headers are results.columns. That's fine. The data, we can just table up and data. Okay, anyway, we'll sort that data. And then raw data would be the result itself. So something like that. That returns an error. So we can do this. We shouldn't need any of that. And what's the type for data? That's my question now. For that, I don't remember. Render table. Okay, render table is here. Data. Okay, is a list of well, slice of a string of slice. Data. So yeah, slice of a slice of string. Okay. And so yeah, for each of those, so let's just call that raw data. Okay. Raw data, add to raw data, and then here we want to do data and okay, let's do something like that. And no more render. I don't think we need table writer imported anymore. What are the chances that didn't mess this stuff up? Okay, so that actually built. That's actually surprising. Okay, so that's the normal output. Does that line up with the old output? Pretty sure it does. Did I have another terminal with this stuff? No. Okay, so that's the basic one. If we do JSON, what does that look like? Okay, so JSON looks like this. It's actually vaguely useful. Don't think we need to prevent it then. And if we do CSV, CSV is good. Well, that was way easier than expected, actually. Okay, so I just need to copy paste the actual normal definition of flag format because I ended up actually introducing the old thing, not just the subset I thought we were going to implement. So yeah, with that we can do CSV JSON table YAML compact, and it's all good. So let's compile it again. So if I do compact, okay, looks like this. That means I can also do this. And if I do it as JSON, pipe that into JQ, that's cool. Yeah, that's actually pretty useful because someone can now actually even use the JSON output, it even does the typing correctly. So that's very useful. Yeah, that's a good addition. So let's just do actually Go format on there because I'm pretty sure I'm seeing one thing that needs to be fixed. Yeah, good now. And let's do, oops, I forgot /s. Incus admin SQL add support for format. And this closes 1020. No, wrong issue. That one. What was the issue number for this guy? 1307. Yep. Yeah, Jared finding it. Like, why was it so easy? It's like, it's because we've got that same pattern everywhere in the CLI by now. Like, it's not the first time. Like, we use it for every single one of the list commands, and instead of having to put the same logic every time, we've got that wrapper that just takes the raw data and does the right thing. So yeah, it's nice when it actually fits. I think the only reason why that code path was not using it was because initially that was not part of the CLI. The SQL command in the LXD days was part of the LXD command, not the LXC command. So it was in a completely different code base that did not have that helper. But with Incus, we moved everything into the same CLI code base, and so now we get to benefit from that and just use the helper. The translation templates. Okay. Oops. Apparently I can't type commit today. Let's fix that. And then do a static analysis run, making sure I didn't miss anything up. But that looks like an easy one. Yeah, I mean the refactor. So Red is saying that like the refactoring was worth it, and yeah, it was. I mean, not just because of that. It's actually slightly awkward. Not all of the commands under Incus admin really fit perfectly, so we've got a few workarounds in there. But the main benefit from us doing this work is well, that now we don't ever have the user run incusd as a command. We actually hide it from path whenever we can in the packages, so that the only command you ever use is just incus. Incusd is a daemon, it's running as a daemon, and nobody should ever directly talk to it, basically. That was really confusing on the LXD side because you had the LXC command line tool, which was like its naming was an issue on its own. But the fact that you also had to use LXD for other stuff, like LXD init, but then using LXC to create other stuff, and LXC init not being the same as LXD init was a complete disaster. So very glad we didn't repeat those kind of issues with Incus, and that we've got Incus admin and all of those commands nicely laid out underneath there. And yeah, that does come with some nice advantages now, like this one, being able to just tidy up things like the table rendering. Okay, so this one is good. Gonna just open the pull request. Go and just do add format to Incus admin SQL. Let's go. And that's now good to go. There was another question. Had the need for two Ethernet interfaces in one container, both from the same incus BR0, but it hit name conflict and it was configured partly in incus. After the Control C to abort, there's still the try new interface, and the volatile keys are still there. That's interesting. So, I mean, the first thing is you can avoid that issue by setting dns.mode to none on your bridge. So the issue is, like, if you want to create an instance and connect it to the same network twice, it's gonna fail because of a name conflict. Actually, let me just switch to my demo project so I don't have all that mess. Okay, so if we create a new instance here, call it A1, okay, config device add A1, GH1, NIC, network, incus BR0, name GH1. So you notice that this worked here, and the reason why it does is because my incus BR0, it's got DNS mode set to none. So that lets me do it just fine. But if we created incus BR1, and then we stop, what was it called, A1? Config override A1 if0 network incus BR1, okay. And then set the other one to also be on BR1, then that failed. So that's probably the error you got. And now you're saying that if that happens, the volatile key is still set. Yeah, it does. Okay, but that's, I mean, in this case, it already existed. Okay, so let me just remove it. I mean, it's not really a problem to have the key exist, but yeah, I agree that this probably shows a reverter is wrong. So now if I remove it, okay, it's gone. And if I need to find the add command again. So if I add it, then that would have issued a volatile key and not cleaned it up when removed. Okay. So let's see. I can take a quick look at this one. Internal server instance, device. It's gonna be in device, NIC bridged. Okay. And the check that's failing. Instance name, both are connected. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so that's the error. Okay, so that's the error. It triggers an error, obviously, and that's, do we have a reverter? We do not. So check address conflicts. Okay, what is that called? And is there a reverter from where that's called? There isn't. Okay, because that's validate config. So is validate config actually causing the expansion? Because the thing is that the volatile key got applied. Is it volatile apply? Is that what it's called? No, volatile and okay, what's the volatile thing? Volatile set probably. No? Okay. So there's a volatile set command that will create the volatile keys, at least some of them. But that's during start. We wouldn't have gotten that far, I don't think. And that's just the host name, so not that. Like basically you would expect, okay, so network clear host 5 limits. No, I'm just trying to figure out where the normal cleanup happens. Because those are just like set get type thing, volatile keys. When it gets deleted, what goes and clears things, because that's where that should be happening. It's kind of interesting. Trying to remember how that stuff works. The devices is always a bit of fun because there's a lot of layer of interactions effectively. There should be an interface somewhere there. It's a device interface, yeah. Okay, so a device can add register. Okay, so it's remove is what would have called. No, it's when removed from an instance. Okay, remove is what would have been called. Okay, so let's see. What does it do on remove? If anything. Oops. Okay. If it's got a parent, it goes and does a bunch of cleanup, and then that's it. So that's not what clears the volatile keys. Okay, interesting. So if that's not what causes it, it's a device remove function. So I could grep. There it is, okay. So that's potentially that code that does it. Device remove. Does that do in life? Device remove, add context, instance can hot plug, calls dev.remove. So not really. There was what I reset here. Check whether we are about to add the same device back with basic config. If it's changed, then remove all volatile keys for this device. Okay. So that looks like what actually does the cleanup in this case, but it's in devices update, so that's probably not this particular code path we want. I'm just trying to figure out what actually clears those keys. Because like on failure of adding something, it's that's when it should also be called. Devices remove, runs device removal for each device. Okay, that just does all of them. I'm kind of confused because this definitely, like, it definitely cleared the key when I removed it. And I'm not seeing it call anything relevant there. Just does can hot plug, then calls dev.remove. And that dev is just, yeah, normal device. Okay. Just gonna go and recheck that I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't see what's clearing it. Anyway, I'm gonna need to figure that one out offline, I think, because that's taking surprisingly longer than expected to just find what actually clears the config key. Because once I can figure it out, then that's easy. We just need to put a reverter when we add the device that this thing gets called to when something goes wrong, and then that will take care of this issue. Like I said, it's not really an issue. Like having that extra config key is not gonna cause any harm, but it's obviously wrong, so it would be nice to get fixed. Anyways, we'll just leave it at that. Oh, okay. Static analysis cleared locally, but doesn't remotely on GitHub Actions. What's going on? Return value is not checked. Well, yeah, it's right, but like, why didn't my local test not find this? That's weird. Anyway, let's just go and fix that error. Like, it's weird because I did do the local run for static analysis. Come on, SQL there. The function is SQL print something. Okay, that reads an error now, so we should just, if it does give us an error, which it probably never should, but whatever. If it does, then we should go and handle it. So let's do that. I mean, it's good that our GitHub Actions test coded. I just don't know why the same test locally didn't, but okay. All right, that's fixed. So, yeah, I think that's it for this live stream. We got to do a whole bunch of bug triaging, so hopefully that was entertaining. Now things are a bit more under control. Like there's still a bunch of pull requests that I need to go look through, as we can see here. Some of those are just super old and needs to kind of be looked at or closed, so those two. Some of those have been have been kind of stale for a while. So either I need to take over that or see if I can help in some ways. Some are just kind of large and haven't had time to look at too much. And then, I mean, this one I just opened. This one I need to review. So pull requests are not too bad. There are a number of issues I need to go through, but now we've got a decent lineup for 6, 7. So those 9 issues, once they get fixed, will be back down to 28 issues, which is going to be a bit more manageable. So that will be pretty good to get to. And yeah, basically slowly catching up on everything. I need to spend a bunch of time on IncusOS, but yeah, I haven't really had the time this week. Hopefully next week. I'm hoping the live stream next week can be around IncusOS and getting sys update going. I've got sysx working, so I do have an IncusOS image now that gets me a Incus daemon running, so that's cool. It's still missing a bunch of other things, but it's got an Incus daemon running through a systemd sysx image, so that's cool. And next step is to get sys update working, so the AEB update mechanism for the main image. And then once that's all done, the next piece will be to work on the glue, which is effectively another gold daemon that needs to run in that image, and that needs to handle effectively pulling the Incus image, feeding it to systemd sysx, getting it mounted, starting the services, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's where we're at, and that's where we're going to be leaving it for today. Thanks a lot, everyone, for watching, and yeah, for the questions and hanging out. And looking forward to catching up on a bunch of issues and yeah, getting back to working on Incus more. I've got some travel planned for later in November, other customer stuff I need to get to, but nothing that will be as disruptive as the past 4 or 5 weeks have been. So it should be pretty good for the rest of the year now. Thanks a lot. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section, or you can go on the community forum where we've got a whole bunch of people there who can help you out. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.